Hank Williams Jr., often called Bocephus, is one of the greatest icons of American country music, a man who took the legacy of his father, the legendary Hank Williams Sr., and turned it into his own colorful story. Born on May 26, 1949, in Shreveport, Louisiana, he lived a life of 74 years of remarkable highs and lows, from a childhood haunted by his father's shadow to the pinnacles of his musical career and heartbreaking personal tragedies. His life was a complex symphony where the joyful notes of success mingled with the sad melodies of loss. Let's explore that journey through each aspect: his greatest sadness, his career, his pursuits, his love and marriage, his children, a message from his son, Hank Williams III, and finally, a conclusion to his meaningful life. Hank Williams Jr.'s greatest sorrow in life is not the failures in his career or the pressures of fame that he faced during his 7+ decades on Earth. Nor is it the difficult days when he grew up in the enormous shadow of his father, Hank Williams Sr., a country music legend who died when he was just 3 years old. Instead, his deepest sorrow is the successive losses of his closest loved ones, most notably the death of his daughter Catherine Diane Williams in 2020 and the passing of his longtime wife Mary Jane Thomas in 2022, and the feeling of helplessness that he could not protect them from life's tragedies. These are not only personal losses, but also lasting emotional wounds, leaving him with lingering regrets and remorse for the things he did not do. Hank Williams Jr. was born into a family marked by music and tragedy. His mother, Audrey Shepard Williams, was a strong woman who was determined to make him a successor to her father after Hank Sr. died in 1953 from alcohol and drug addiction. He was used to pressure from a young age, his first stage performances at age 8, where he sang his father's songs to crowds expecting a Hank Williams reborn. His childhood was not filled with the carefree play of a child. Instead, it was filled with touring and sad songs about pain he was too young to fully understand. But his home was a place of comfort, with his mother's love and the presence of his half-sister Lycretia, although his relationship with her gradually became strained due to her over-controlling ways. His greatest sadness stemmed from a series of family tragedies that he could not prevent. The first was a horrific climbing accident on August 8, 1975, at Ajax Peak, Montana, when he was 26. He slipped 500 feet off a cliff and fell off a cliff, leaving him with shattered facial bones, nearly blind in his left eye, and scars that spanned the entire length of his head. He spent more than 2 years recovering, with dozens of reconstructive surgeries. Although he survived, the accident not only changed his appearance, his trademark bushy beard, cowboy hat, and sunglasses, but also left him with a deep fear of the fragility of life. He told friends that every time he looked in the mirror, he saw not just his scars, but what he had almost lost. But the real pain came in later years. In 2020, his daughter Catherine Diane Williams, known as Katie, died in a car accident in Tennessee at the age of 27. Katie was his daughter with his third wife, Mary Jane Thomas, and an integral part of his life. She was a promising singer, inheriting the Williams family's musical talent, and he was proud of her strength. When he received the news of Katie's death, he was at home on his Tennessee farm. He said he sat quietly in the living room, holding a photo of Katie, and cried silently, unable to believe that he had lost the child he had hoped would carry on the family legacy. The pain was not yet over when on March 22, 2022, Mary Jane Thomas, his wife of 32 years, died of complications from cosmetic surgery in Florida. He was by Mary Jane's side as she took her last breath, holding her hand and praying in vain. The losses left him with an unfillable void. "I lost the most important people in my life," he said, in a rare interview after Mary Jane's death, and I don't know how to go on without them. Every time he passed Katie's room in the house or saw Mary Jane's belongings, he would fall into a state of silence, letting his tears flow silently in the darkness. Looking back at his 74th year, he realized that his greatest sadness was not the physical hardships or the scars on his body, but the regret of not being able to keep the people he loved with him longer. Hank Williams Jr.'s career was a long journey from a boy forced to sing his father's songs to one of the biggest stars in American country music, with a unique style that combined country, southern rock, and blues. It was a road filled with both glorious triumphs and bitter failures, where he fought not only to escape his father's shadow, but also to assert himself through efforts that left him crying in the dark more than once. Hank Williams Jr. entered the music industry very early, almost out of choice. His mother, Audrey, managed his career from a young age, taking him on stage at age 8 to sing his father's songs like Love Sick Blues and Your Cheatin' Heart. He released his first album, Hank Williams Jr. Sings the Songs of Hank Williams, in 1964 at age 15, and quickly became a phenomenon with audiences who loved traditional country music. But in his heart, it was not the path he chose. He once said that every time he stepped on stage, he felt like he was living someone else's memory, not his own life. In those early years, he sang to please his mother and his audience, but deep down, he longed for freedom, to create his own music. His first big break came when he decided to break out of the mold. After a climbing accident in 1975, he spent 2 years recovering, and during that time, he found a new direction. The album Hank Williams Jr. and Friends, 1975, marked his transformation, combining country music with southern rock, featuring artists such as Charlie Daniels and the Marshall Tucker Band. The album was not only a musical turning point, but also a personal statement, affirming that he was more than just Hank Williams Sr.'s son. When he returned to the stage with a bushy beard, cowboy hat, and sunglasses, audiences began to see him as an independent artist, no longer in the shadow of his father. The 1980s were Hank Williams Jr.'s heyday. He released a series of successful albums, including Whiskey Bent and Hellbound, 1979, Habits Old and New, 1980, and Rowdy, 1981, with hits like Family Tradition, A Country Boy Can Survive, and All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight. These songs were not only Billboard hits, but also became symbols of the free-spirited, indomitable spirit of the American South. He won numerous awards, including the CMA Entertainer of the Year in 1987 and 1988, and was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2021. He has sold more than 70 million albums worldwide, with 6 platinum and 20 gold albums, a feat few other country artists have matched. But the road to success was not easy. Before he found his own style, he faced painful failures. In the 1960s and early 1970s, he was criticized for not being able to escape his father's shadow. Albums like Songs My Father Left Me, 1969, although beloved by audiences, left him feeling trapped. He would sit alone in the studio after long recording sessions, looking at piles of tapes and crying because he felt like a copy, not a real artist. The 1975 accident was another big blow. He nearly lost his life, and doctors said he might never sing again. During his days in the hospital, with his face bandaged and in constant pain, he cried not only from the physical pain, but also from the fear that his career was over. Hank Williams Jr. did not give up, though. He relearned to sing with his broken face, practicing for hours to regain his powerful voice. He once said that there were nights when he stood in front of the mirror, singing Family Tradition over and over again until his voice was hoarse, tears streaming down his face from both the pain and the joy that he could still continue. Later, When he returned to the stage and heard the applause of the audience, he would often turn away to hide his tears, not because he was sad, but because he knew he had overcome the darkness to find the light. His career is a long story of resilience, where every note he sang contained sweat, tears, and intense desire. Hank Williams Jr. did not just sing to make a living. He sang to leave his mark, to prove that a man born in the shadow of his father could create his own unique, immortal legacy. What he strived for was not just awards or fame, but recognition of his talent, influence on the next generation, and a legacy that would stand the test of time. From a young age, Hank Williams Jr. had a burning desire to step out of the shadow of Hank Williams Sr. and become a respected artist in his own right. When he began performing at the age of 8, audiences saw him as Little Hank, a boy singing his father's old songs. But he wanted more. He wanted people to think of him as Hank Williams Jr., an artist with his own style, not just the son of a legend. To achieve this, he spent decades experimenting with music, from singing traditional country music to incorporating Southern rock and blues, creating a sound he called outlaw country. The album Hank Williams Jr. and Friends was the first step, but he didn't stop there. A major accomplishment he always pursued was to become a symbol of the free and unyielding spirit of the American South. With songs like A Country Boy Can Survive and Family Tradition, he sang not only about his own life, but also about the millions of working people who found empathy in his lyrics. He wanted his music to be more than just entertainment, but also a voice for a generation. People who loved their independence,